And I want to say praise to the Most High God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and peace to everybody that is here on the Lord's Holy High Day, the Feast of Tabernacles. As always, it is good to stand before you to deal with the Word of God, and it's a blessing to be here on the first day of the Feast of Tabernacles. So we're going to go ahead and get right into the lesson. The title of the lesson is The Feast of Tabernacles, the Gathering of the Nation of Israel. Again, the title of the lesson is The Feast of Tabernacles, the Gathering of the Nation of Israel. And as always, again, we're here to honor the Feast of Tabernacles, the feast day that the Lord has set up in the Bible. This is something that He created. And all of His feast days have great significance. All of His feast days mean something. These are not like holidays, like man's holidays, like for instance, Christmas, Easter, Thanksgiving, Valentine's Day. Those were all made up by man. If anybody knows specifically who, please tell us, call us and tell us, because nobody really knows. Can't nobody really put a finger on it. But we know that they weren't created by God, so therefore it had to be created by man. And there is no supreme plan embedded in those holidays. You know, it kind of just is what it is. You know, on December 25th, you drag a tree in your house, put some presents under it, get the family together. It is what it is. Well, the feast of the Lord is not like that. The feast of the Lord have prophecy, end time prophecy, and have understanding of God's plan and understanding of the way the world is embedded in those days. And the reason that He commanded us to commemorate those days every year was to keep those things in remembrance. What God is doing and what He's going to do. The Feast of Tabernacles is no different. That's why the lesson is called The Feast of Tabernacles, the Gathering of the Nation of Israel. Most of the world doesn't even know that the nation of Israel even needs to be gathered. Most of the world doesn't even know who the real nation of Israel is, or how this has any significance in God's total plan for the earth, period. Because when we say the gathering of the nation of Israel, we're talking physical and spiritual. And again, that has great significance. That has great meaning. The whole point of this life is to, one way or another, become part of the nation of Israel, whether that be spiritual, or it has to be spiritual, even for physical Israelites. This is the whole goal. And what does that mean? That just means becoming ultimately part of the God family. But there are multiple components to this. God made a promise to Abraham and to Isaac and to Jacob. And He said ultimately He would gather those people that He scattered. Mm-hmm. And again, if you're listening and you have no idea about the Bible, no idea about the nation of Israel, you're scratching your head right now. But this has great significance on a global scale. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at the Feast of Tabernacles, how to celebrate it, and what it means. So we're going to start in Leviticus 23, because that's where you go to find out what days God made holy and what days to honor in His name. We go to Leviticus, the 23rd chapter, to find these things out. If it is not located in the 23rd chapter of Leviticus, it is not something that God created that is commanded to be commemorated. So we're going to start Leviticus chapter 23 and verse 1. Leviticus chapter 23 and verse 1. Leviticus chapter 23 and verse 1. Okay, when you get there, go ahead.
And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying.
So again, we always like to point out, look at who's talking. This is not our pastor talking. This is not some dignitary talking. This is God talking to Moses, right? Mm-hmm. Giving a message to us through Moses. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, verse 2,
Speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them concerning the feast of the Lord,
The feast of who?
of the Lord,
The feast of the Lord. So if we claim to serve the Lord, we should be keeping these feasts.
Mhm.
He's given these feasts to us. They're his feasts, but he created them to give to us. Speak unto the children of Israel and say unto them concerning the feast of the Lord, keep going.
which you shall proclaim to be holy convocations.
So we are supposed to proclaim these things to be holy convocations or holy gatherings. We're supposed to gather on these days, right? So if all else fails, whatever civil holidays people come up with, and things that people want to get together for anniversaries or graduations or whatever, that's all fine. But by all means, we must gather on these days, which ye shall proclaim to be holy convocations. Keep going.
Even these are my feasts.
Again, he reiterated whose feasts these are. Why? Because he knows down the line people are going to be like, well, these are Jews' feasts, or this ain't for us.
Right.
God said, these are my feasts. You want to deal with me? You got to deal with this. Skip down to verse 33. Go ahead.
And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, saying, The 15th day of this 7th month shall be the Feast of Tabernacles for 7 days unto the Lord.
So the 15th day of this 7th month shall be the Feast of Tabernacles for 7 days unto the Lord. That's pretty clear instruction, right? So we're supposed to keep the Feast of Tabernacles for 7 days unto the Lord. Keep going.
On the first day shall be a holy convocation.
Okay, so even though the feast is for 7 days, we must come together as a whole, as a body of Christ, on that first day, which is what we're doing here today. This is why we're in the middle of the week. What is it, Thursday today? You look outside, the world is going on business as usual. We could go down to the lobby. The world is going on business as usual. But God's people are somewhere gathering in droves, just like they do on Sunday, right? There's some people that gather on Sunday in droves. They seem to understand that that's a day that they want to gather. That's not commanded by God. But in like kind, like they always gather on Sunday, which is not commanded by God, God's true people are gathering on these days, no matter what day they fall on. This year it happened to fall on a Thursday. We tried to take off work to come keep this commandment, because he said, on the first day shall be in holy convocation. Notice he said what kind of gathering it is. This is a holy gathering. What preacher or pastor has the right to say we're not supposed to gather on this day when God said this day is holy and this is a holy gathering?
That's right.
Keep going.
You shall do no servile work therein.
That's also a running theme with the feasts. The feasts are to be treated as a Sabbath, but there is more leniency on the feast. And the leniency, we're going to see what that is, but we'll just let the cat out the bag now. The leniency is we're not supposed to work, but we can do work which pertains to the feast. So whenever we see no servile work, that's letting us know that there is some type of work that can be done on this day. And that type of work is the work pertaining to the feast. We just had the memorial blowing of trumpets. Right? That day is supposed to be treated as a Sabbath. And that day is a memorial, meaning that we are supposed to be in remembrance on that day every year. But in those instructions, it also said don't do any servile work, right?
That's right.
It didn't say don't do no work. That's what it said on the Day of Atonement, do no work.
Period.
That means you don't do no work, you don't cook, that's not a day that you feast, anything like that. But in the instructions in the memorial blowing of trumpets, it says don't do any servile work, letting us know that there is some type of work to be done on that day, and that is the work being done to feast. Otherwise, why is that even being said on that day? And it's the same as on Tabernacles. Same thing, right?
That's right.
Said no servile work. We know that means we're not supposed to go to work to get a paycheck. But all the work, if we turn the cameras around, you'll see sisters feverishly working right now towards the feast. That's what that means, no servile work. And we're going to see that. Keep going.
It's 36.
Are we finished with that?
Yes.
Okay. Let's go to
23:36.
Yes, 36. Okay, go ahead.
7 days shall you offer an offering made by fire unto the Lord.
Uh-huh.
On the 8th day shall be a holy convocation unto you.
So the Feast of Tabernacles is 7 days, but then on the 8th day is a holy convocation as well, right? So the whole thing climaxes on the 8th day, which, we're going to come back next week and do that. But it says 7 days you shall offer an offering made by fire unto the Lord. On the 8th day shall be a holy convocation unto you. Keep going.
And you shall offer an offering made by fire unto the Lord. It is a solemn assembly, and you shall do no servile work therein.
So you said it again. You shall do no servile work again in it. Right? So we know anytime we see no servile work, that's letting us know the Lord has given us leniency to do work towards the feast.
That's right.
Keep going.
These are the feasts of the Lord, which you shall proclaim to be holy convocations, to offer an offering made by fire unto the Lord, a burnt offering, a meat offering, a sacrifice, and drink offerings, everything upon his day.
Okay, so the Lord gave specific instructions on offerings. So that's usually the first thing that somebody that doesn't keep the feast, doesn't understand the feast, wants to bring up. Somehow, they don't know the feasts are falling on these days. They don't know what we're supposed to do on these feasts. But somehow, some kind of way, they do know some offering's supposed to take place. Because that's always brought up. Well, how come y'all ain't got a gang of goats and bulls up in the Comfort Inn with y'all on these days? Well, we understand that we instructed by God that we have a better sacrifice that is in place of all these sacrifices and offerings. And we're going to take a look at that. Let's go to Hebrews 10. See, the Lord knew when he gave the animal sacrificial law that it was a schoolmaster to bring us to Christ. But he also knew that he wanted us to continue with these holy days because in giving the holy days, he said, keep them forever throughout your generations.
Yep.
That's letting us know that even though he upgraded the sacrifice part of the feast, because we got a way better sacrifice now. His name is Jesus. I don't know if you heard of him, but he's the ultimate sacrifice, which is who does away. He replaces all of this we read about bringing a goat and a bull and offering as a sin offering, a peace offering. Jesus is a better sacrifice and replaces all of that. But that don't do away with the memorial. Memorial means that we annually observe this to keep this in remembrance. That's why he said do it forever. And we're going to see that. Hebrews chapter 10 and verse 5. Hebrews chapter 10 and verse 5. Matter of fact, this is not in the lesson, but start at verse 4. Okay, go ahead.
For it is not possible that the blood of bulls and of goats should take away sin.
See, this is not something new that the Lord discovered in the New Testament. You know what? I set up this animal sacrifice, but you know what? That's not really going to take away sin. That's not something he discovered in the New Testament. He knew that when he set it up.
Right.
He set it up as a learning tool for us to understand why we even need someone to come die for our sins in the first place. For us to understand the concept of the wages of sin is death. That's what God said in the Bible. When something sins, something has to die. Period. End of story. And God is not a man that he can say something and then just go back on it. So the fact that he said the wages of sin is death means that now someone has to come and get us out from under that sentence. So the bulls and the goats was to show us that concept, give us that understanding. You did this wrong, even if you didn't know it was wrong, because the law says if you sin in ignorance, you got to go give these offerings. So once you understand, man, I did this is against God, I shouldn't have done it. Now you got to go and get a live animal and you got to kill it. Tell me if that wouldn't keep us from doing the wrong thing. You know what I'm saying? We want to go and tell a lie, but you got these animals that you might want to lie, but you really ain't trying to slaughter no animals. But what if you got to do that every time you do something wrong? You're going to think twice about it, right? Yep. You're going to understand the gravity of what we're doing. See, when we don't see God on a day-to-day basis and there's no instant ramification for sin, we don't really understand the gravity of what we're doing.
Mm.
But it's not that was, quote unquote, taking away sin, because it said it is not possible that the blood of bulls and goats should take away the sins, right?
Mm-hmm.
Verse 5.
Wherefore, when he cometh into the world, he saith, sacrifice and offering thou wouldest not, but a body hast thou prepared me. And burnt offering and sacrifices for sin thou hast had no pleasure.
He ain't had no pleasure in that. Why? Because he really want us to do his will. He don't want us to break his law. So we think, oh, he's doing a great thing, keeping the sacrifice and all the people back then.
Mm.
But all that means is that sin is going on.
Right.
The Lord don't have no pleasure in that. The Lord has pleasure in obedience. Keep going.
Then said I, Lo, I come in the volume of the book. It is written of me to do thy will, O God. Above when he said, sacrifice and offering and burnt offering and offering for sin thou wouldest not, neither hadst pleasure therein, where are offered by the law. Then said he, Lo, I come to do thy will, O God. He taketh away the first, that he may establish the second.
Okay, so, and what's the topic of the conversation, by the way? The topic of the conversation is sacrifice. That is all he is talking about. He's not talking about, I come to do away with honor your father and mother. He's not talking about, I come to do away with the Feast of Tabernacles. He said, he taketh away the first, talking about the first sacrifice, which is the blood of bulls and goats, because that wasn't taking away sin anyway. He taketh away the first so that he may establish the second. The second what? The second sacrifice, the greater one, himself. Verse 10.
By the which will we are sanctified through the offering of the body of Jesus Christ once for all.
Once for all, right? That means all people, even before Christ came in the flesh. That means all these instances that we're reading in the Bible where, hey, we need to go and offer up a bull or a goat. Well, we got a better sacrifice in place of that now, right? But we do still have a sacrifice. That's the point. So anyone that wants to say, well, y'all ain't sacrificing, yeah, of course we're not. We got the ultimate sacrifice. He is in place of those sacrifices. But that don't mean now that we shut down the memorials and all that those memorials mean and then go start serving something else that some man set up. That don't mean that. How could that mean that? Where did we read that in what we just read? So now let's go to Leviticus 23. Back to Leviticus 23. Leviticus chapter 23 and verse 41. Leviticus chapter 23 and verse 41. Okay, brother, when you get there, go ahead.
And ye shall keep it a feast unto the Lord 7 days in a year. It shall be a statute forever in your generations.
Notice what he said. Knowing he was going to do it the way with the sacrifice part, he still said to keep it a statute forever in your generations. Now, if we let a pastor twist that up and make forever not mean forever, we might as well just stop. We might as well not even be going to church, right? This is pretty clear. What more does the Lord got to do to make us understand forever? Do he got to say forever 5 times? What does he got to do? Right? It should be a statute forever in your generations. Keep going.
You shall celebrate it in the 7th month.
We should celebrate the 7th month, and that's what we're doing right now. So now, let's go to Zechariah 14. Because some people like to say, everything in the Old Testament is fulfilled. But they obviously never went all the way through the Old Testament. We like to take them right here because he said the Feast of Tabernacles is going to be held 7 days forever, right? He even shows in the Bible, in the Old Testament, he shows a picture of the future where that very thing is happening. People are still keeping the Feast of Tabernacles. Zechariah 14 and verse 1. Okay, brother, when you get there, go ahead.
Behold, the day of the Lord cometh, and thy spoil shall be divided in the midst of thee.
Okay, so we know we're talking future, right? When the Bible talks about the day of the Lord, it is talking about the day that Jesus himself returns to the earth. Everybody calls themselves Christians know Jesus is coming back, right? May not acknowledge that he's not coming back as a man, or even that he's not coming back to shake a whole bunch of people's hands like a politician. Everybody may not understand that, but everybody understands. Everybody that calls themselves Christians understand that we waiting on Christ to return. Well, that's what this is talking about. That's called the day of the Lord. When John said he was in the Spirit on the Lord's day, he was not talking about Sunday. That's what a lot of preachers like to twist the Bible to make it sound like that's what he's talking about. Notice he said that in the book of Revelation, and after he made that statement, I'm in the Spirit on the Lord's day, he started talking about a whole bunch of destruction, basically, right?
Right.
He didn't say nothing about Sunday coming to church and crying and hearing a whole bunch of music, like a concert. He didn't say nothing about that. He said, I'm in the Spirit on the Lord's day, and all this stuff is about to happen. Good thing I ain't going to be there, basically. He said, behold, the day of the Lord cometh, and thy spoil shall be divided in the midst of thee. Skip down to verse 4.
And his feet shall stand in that day upon the Mount of Olives, which is before Jerusalem on the east. And the Mount of Olives shall cleave in the midst thereof towards the east and towards the west. And there shall be a very great valley, and half of the mountain shall be moved towards the north, and half of it towards the south.
So again, we know none of this has happened, right? And this is literal. This is not no spiritual God's feet hitting a mountain and splitting it. This is literal. This is going to happen. Coming to a theater near us very soon. Skip down to verse 9.
And the Lord shall be king over all the earth. And that day shall there be one Lord, and his name one.
We definitely know this ain't happening right now, right? There's all kind of lords. Even when we talk about the God of the Bible, you got all kinds of different spins of what we reading here. Right? People serving everything but God. Look at today. God commanded the Feast of Tabernacles, right?
That's right.
God's people supposed to be dealing with the Feast of Tabernacles. Look at what's going on. Right? As a whole, people ain't doing it. But in this time, in the future, the Lord shall be king over the earth, all the earth. In that day shall there be one Lord, and his name one. Look at that. We ain't even going to be having all these big fist fights about what his name is. Name going to be one, right? Everybody going to know it and understand it.
Yep.
That's not even going to be an issue. Skip down to verse 11.
And men shall dwell in it, and there shall be no more utter destruction, but Jerusalem shall be safely inhabited.
We definitely know that's not happening, right? We definitely know that this is future. Is Jerusalem being safely inhabited right now?
No, not
at all, right? Not at all. Skip down to verse 16.
And it shall come to pass that everyone that is left of all the nations which come against Jerusalem shall even go up from year to year to worship the King, the Lord of hosts, and to keep the Feast of Tabernacles.
Why is he talking about in the future when God brings his kingdom into existence? Why is he still talking about keeping the Feast of Tabernacles? And he said those of every nation, all the nations that came against Jerusalem. So we're talking strangers. This is a worldwide thing. This thing we're doing today is going to be a worldwide celebration every year. And it shall come to pass that everyone that is left of all the nations which came against Jerusalem shall go up from year to year to worship the King, the Lord of hosts, and to keep the Feast of Tabernacles. Verse 17.
And it shall be that whomso will not come up for all the families of the earth unto Jerusalem to worship the King, the Lord of hosts, even upon them shall be no rain.
And that's coming from God, right? God is in control of that, is he not? People trying to even twist that up. Like somebody else got control of rain and the elements and all of that. I ain't saying somebody ain't got a trick or two up their sleeve, but ultimately God is in control. Ain't nobody administering the whole sky but God. They say if they don't come up for this same feast that we dealing with today, there won't be any rain. Verse 18.
And if the family of Egypt go not up, and come not, that have no rain, there shall be the plague, wherewith the Lord shall smite the heathen that come not up to keep the feast of the tabernacles.
But notice, we talking the kingdom of God. We still got some other nations. Even those who still got some things to learn. And this is how they're going to learn. But those of us that call ourselves Christians now, we need to be ahead of this curve, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's why we're doing this today. So again, when God said it's forever throughout your generations, this is way past us. It's going to keep going whether you do it or not.
That's
My suggestion would be to do it. Now let's go back to Leviticus 23. And verse 39. Leviticus 23 and verse 39. Okay, brother, go ahead.
Also in the 15th day of the 7th month, when ye have gathered in the fruit of the land, you shall keep a feast unto the Lord 7 days. On the first day shall be a Sabbath, and on the 8th day shall be a Sabbath.
So again, we're looking at how do we keep the Feast of Tabernacles. These feast days are to be treated as a Sabbath.
Mm-hmm.
The Sabbath day, which happens weekly, and the rules and regulations that come with the Sabbath day, which is also a holy day, right? Mm-hmm. The Lord commanded us, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. That is the basis for all of these feast days. It's just the feast days the Lord gives us a little more leniency so that we can celebrate and have a feast and come together and rejoice before Him. But the Sabbath is the basis. So it said, on the first day shall be a Sabbath, and on the 8th day shall be a Sabbath, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's go to Exodus 20. Exodus chapter 20, and we're going to look at the weekly Sabbath, because again, we're looking at how do you celebrate the Feast of Tabernacles, right? God sets up feasts, and He got certain things He wants us to do so that we can keep these days holy. Right? So we're going to get through the lesson, which is the spiritual food, and ultimately we're going to get to the physical food and the rejoicing. Exodus 20 and verse 8. Okay, brother, when you get there, go ahead.
Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy.
Remember the Sabbath day, right? Because everybody going to forget. God knows everything, right?
Yep.
He just throw that in there just to show you. Remember the Sabbath day to do what? To keep it holy. This is something He is commissioning us to do.
That's right.
He is commissioning us to remember it, to keep it holy. Verse 9.
6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work.
Not 5. 6.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's supposed to be 6 days. We do our thing. 1 day, we keep it the way God said keep it. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Verse 10.
But the 7th day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God.
Not the first day. The 7th day. Keep going.
In it thou shalt not do any work, thou, nor thy son, nor thy daughter, nor thy manservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thy cattle, nor thy stranger that is within thy gates.
So that's the standard right there, right? Mm-hmm. On the Sabbath, don't do no work. Anybody you got control over and work for you, kids, family, that's in your household, don't do no work. Period. Verse 11.
For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea, and all that in them is, and rested the 7th day. Wherefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it.
Notice He said He blessed the Sabbath day, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we always talk about we want to be blessed and highly favored. A good start would be to deal with the blessed days that God set apart, right?
That's right.
So now we see the basis, which is the Sabbath day, the weekly Sabbath, because it said in Leviticus 23 that the Feast of Tabernacles, on the first day we have a Sabbath, which is today, right?
Right.
So now let's go to Exodus 35. We're going to see what else we can and cannot do on the regular Sabbath. And those rules transfer to the high days, except where the rules are lightened or given a little leeway so that we can celebrate. Exodus 35 and verse 3. Okay, brother, go ahead.
You shall kindle no fire throughout your habitations upon the Sabbath day.
So on the weekly Sabbath, we're not supposed to kindle any fire. right? That's a standard rule on the weekly Sabbath. Now, what does that mean, right? Because we know the children of Israel had to see. They didn't have, who is it out here? Bell that does the electric. Oh no, it's hydro. They didn't have the hydro trucks coming out, hooking up their lights so they could just turn the light switch. They had to have some torches or some lanterns or something, right? And we know they were cold, right? They wasn't shivering. We don't have no accounts of, and the Sabbath came in and we froze to death. We know they had to use practical application. So what does this mean? Let's look further. I'm sorry, hold on one second. Yep, let's go to John chapter 19. John chapter 19, we're finished with that, right?
Yes.
So it said we can't kindle any fire. We're going to get some understanding on that. John chapter 19 and verse 30. John chapter 19 and verse 30. Because again, Leviticus told us that these holy days, these festivals, these feast days are Sabbath days, right? When we come together and congregate on the first day and the 8th day. So we're saying you can't do no work, you can't kindle any fire, right? John chapter 19 and verse 30. Okay, brother, go ahead.
When Jesus therefore had received the vinegar, he said, "It is finished." And he bowed his head and gave up the ghost. The Jews therefore, because it was the preparation that the bodies should not remain upon the cross on the Sabbath day, for that Sabbath day was an high day.
So now we got some understanding. This is when Jesus died on the cross. And they said that they were preparing for the Sabbath day, but we're not talking about the weekly Sabbath. He died on a high day. Right? Which we know that was he died on the Passover. Had to, because he was the Passover lamb.
Right.
That's why Paul said in 1 Corinthians chapter 5, Christ our Passover is sacrificed for us. Which would make it crazy to call ourselves a Christian and not commemorate the Passover. That doesn't make any sense. Christ is the Passover.
That's right.
So, but it said, for that Sabbath day was an high day, meaning it was a high holy day, which the Lord told us should be a Sabbath, which means we take the rules that go with the Sabbath and the way we treat the Sabbath and apply it to the high day. And then any special issue, any special circumstances the Lord allows us on those days, we do that too. Keep going.
Besought Pilate that their legs might be broken and that they might be taken away.
Okay, Exodus 12. We finished with that?
Yes.
Yeah, Exodus chapter 12. Again, we're going to get through this so we can get to the physical food. Exodus chapter 12. So again, it said, don't kindle any fire, right? It said, don't do any work. So now, Exodus 12 and verse 16. Exodus 12 and verse 16. Now, this is talking about the Feast of Unleavened Bread. But again, in the Feast of Unleavened Bread, it told us, don't do any servile work. So again, we're just trying to get some understanding. What does that mean? Because we know on a Sabbath, we're not supposed to do any work. So then when they say don't do servile work, that's giving us room to do some kind of work, right? So now, Exodus 12 and verse 16. Okay, brother, go ahead.
And in the first day there shall be an holy convocation. And in the seventh day there shall be an holy convocation to you.
Okay, this is talking about unleavened bread. Keep going.
No manner of work shall be done in them.
So it said no manner of work shall be done in them. But we know in Leviticus it says don't do any servile work. So it's breaking down what that means. It means no manner of work shall be done in them. Keep going.
Save that which every man must eat.
So specifically, we can do work towards eating for the feast. So when we see servile work, that's what that means. We get understanding that we're not supposed to do no work. I'm not supposed to be washing my car, doing my laundry, or going to work. But if I got to cook for the feast, bring food in for the feast, light the pilot lights to keep the food warm, we can do that, right? Save that which every man must eat. Keep going.
That only may be done of you.
Okay, so now let's go to Deuteronomy 16. We finished with that, right?
Yes.
Deuteronomy chapter 16. Deuteronomy chapter 16 and verse 13. Deuteronomy 16 and verse 13. Because again, we're seeing, how do we celebrate the Feast of Tabernacles? The Lord is we're talking about a God that told the children of Israel how many hoops to put through the curtain in the tabernacle.
Yes.
That's how specific God is. And you better not put one more or one less. So God ain't leaving nothing to chance, right? His commandments are nigh to us. He's telling us what we need to do. Deuteronomy 17 and verse 13. Okay, brother, go ahead.
Thou shalt observe the Feast of Tabernacles 7 days. After that thou hast gathered in thy corn and thy wine.
So once we gather in the harvest, right? This is a harvest festival. A lot of us may have family members calling us talking about, why don't you come to our harvest festival? We call it Thanksgiving. But I like to say, look, I'm doing one for 7 days. I'm going to climax it on the 8th day. After that, guess what? I'm going to be harvest festivaled out. You can miss me with some new harvest festivals after that. I'm done. 7 days plus one. I mean, how much partying can you do? You can't do it better than the Lord.
That's right.
He got 7 plus 1 that he doing right now. And blessed the whole time. Don't get no better than that. Maybe y'all might want to come deal with this.
Yeah.
Thou shalt observe the Feast of Tabernacles 7 days. After that, thou hast gathered thy corn and thy wine. So now we starting to see what the significance of the Feast of Tabernacles is, because it's also called the Feast of Ingathering. This is about gathering. And that's what we're supposed to remember every year. Verse 14.
And thou shalt rejoice in thy feast, thou and thy son and thy daughter and thy manservant and thy maidservant.
This is a commandment, right? Thou shalt rejoice. Right? We're not supposed to be sad on this day, having strife. But we know Satan like to come in on the feast days and throw people off.
Yep.
That's why we got to read this. We ain't supposed to be thrown off. We're supposed to rejoice. We're supposed to. This is a commandment. Thou shalt rejoice in the feast, thou and thy son and thy daughter and thy manservant and thy maidservant. Keep going.
And the Levite and the stranger and the fatherless.
You got some other nations rejoicing too in this feast that's holy to the Lord. Some people try to act like that's not even supposed to happen. People see pictures of our congregations of West, say, oh, y'all got people of other nations in your congregation. Y'all don't. That's what we're supposed to be doing, spreading this gospel.
That's right.
Keep going.
And the widow that are within thy gates. 7 days shalt thou keep a solemn feast unto the Lord thy God in the place which the Lord shall choose, because the Lord thy God shall bless thee in all thy increase and in all the work of thy hands.
Okay, so we see, look, the Lord is telling us to rejoice. It ain't like we don't got a reason to rejoice, right? We really don't got a reason to be sad. If God is blessing us to the point where we can be here,
yes, right,
understanding his day on his holy day, and he's provided us with what we need to provide for the feast, and we got another day of breath to live, and we got both hands, both feet. We got a lot to be thankful for, and a lot to rejoice for. Right? Said, because the Lord thy God shall bless thee in all thine increase. Keep going.
And in all thy works of thy hands, therefore thou shalt surely rejoice. 3 times in a year shall all the males appear before the Lord thy God in the place which he shall choose.
Okay, so no matter what, there's 3 times that all the males got to come and appear. Keep going.
In the feast of unleavened bread, and in the feast of weeks, and the feast of tabernacles.
That's today, right?
That's right.
Keep going.
And they shall not appear before the Lord empty.
Right, so we're the ones that pull these feasts off. We have to bring and contribute and do what we can to make sure that these feasts go off. Right? So we can't appear before the Lord empty. We got to contribute. Is that it?
No. 17.
Okay, keep going.
Every man shall give as he is able.
But the Lord is fair, right? I'm having a tough time. You know, I got a couple bottles of pop. I got a couple bottles. That's what I'm bringing. Right? Every man shall give as he is able.
Mm-hmm.
I don't got to bring a whole steak platter if I can't do it. Keep going.
According to the blessings of the Lord thy God, which he has given thee.
Okay, so now let's go to Exodus 23. Exodus chapter 23. Exodus chapter 23, because we looked at how do we celebrate the Feast of Tabernacles. We have a holy convocation. We come together. We're allowed to cook and work to put the feast together, but we treat the day like a Sabbath, so we don't do any of our own business or work or washing cars or doing our own laundry, stuff like that. But what does the feast represent? It's the Feast of Tabernacles. It said, when you have gathered in your corn and your wine, right?
Mm-hmm.
Exodus 23 and verse 14. Okay, brother, when you get there, go ahead.
3 times thou shalt keep a feast unto me in the year.
Okay, we read that in the last verse, right? 3 times a year, right? Mm-hmm. Keep going.
Thou shalt keep the feast of unleavened bread.
Uh-huh.
Thou shalt eat unleavened bread 7 days, as I commanded thee, in the time appointed of the month Abib. For in it thou camest out from Egypt, and none shall appear before me empty. And the feast of harvest, the first fruit of thy labors.
That would be Pentecost, right? Which is another harvest festival. The Lord got it covered. We ain't got to come up and create nothing. Right? He already got 2. And in the feast of harvest, the first fruits of thy labors, keep going,
which thou hast sown in the field, and a feast of ingathering.
That's another name for the Feast of Tabernacles, the Feast of Ingathering. And that's going to show us exactly what the significance of the Feast of Tabernacles is. Keep going.
Which is in the end of the year.
It's in the end, right? Feast of Tabernacles is in the end of the year, and it's talking about the ingathering. Keep going.
When thou hast gathered in thy labors out of the field.
When we have gathered in what? Our labors out of the field. At the end of the year, when we've gathered in our labors out of the field, we have the Feast of Ingathering. So now let's look at what does this feast represent. Let's go to Isaiah chapter 5. Because again, God is not just giving us stuff to do just because he want to keep us busy. Everything he do has so much stuff interwoven in it that is not even funny. It's chock full of meaning. Isaiah 5 and verse 1. Okay, brother, when you get there, go ahead.
Now will I sing to my well-beloved a song of my beloved touching his vineyard? My beloved has a vineyard in a very fruitful hill. Okay,
so we're going to get a song, which is going to be like a parable. It's talking about his beloved and touching his vineyard. But at the end of this song, we're going to see who these things represent, the beloved and the vineyard, right? Verse 2.
And he fenced it, and gathered out the stones thereof, and planted it with the choicest vine, and built a tower in the midst of it, and also made a winepress therein.
Okay, so the one planting his vineyard did everything right, did everything he was supposed to do, took care of it. Keep going.
And he looked that it should bring forth grapes. It brought forth wild grapes.
But the vineyard was not producing the fruit that it was supposed to. Even though the one planting it did everything he was supposed to do. Keep going.
And now, O inhabitants of Jerusalem and men of Judah, judge, I pray you, between me and my vineyard. What should have been done more to my vineyard that I have not done in it? Wherefore, when I looked that it should bring forth grapes, brought it forth wild grapes? And now go to, I will tell you what I will do to my vineyard. I will take away the hedge thereof, and it shall be eaten up, and break down the walls thereof, and it shall be trodden down. And I will lay it waste. It shall not be pruned nor digged, but there shall come up briars and thorns. I will also command the clouds that they rain, no rain upon it.
We done seen that before, right?
Yeah.
So we kind of got an understanding of who this is talking. We ain't got a guess it's going to tell us.
Mm-hmm.
But we know the one planting the vineyard got to be God, because who control the rain and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But notice what he said. I planted a vineyard. I did what I was supposed to do. It's supposed to bring forth grapes. It brought forth wild grapes. So you know what? I'm not going to come take care of it no more. I'm going to let it do what it do.
Mm-hmm.
You want to go wild? Let's get wild. We're going to pull the hedges up. We're not going to prune it. We're going to break down the walls. And then you're going to see what's going to happen. Right? We're not going to let any rain fall on the vineyard. Verse 7.
For the vineyard of the Lord of hosts is the house of Israel.
The vineyard of the Lord of hosts is the house of Israel?
Mm.
How many of our preachers are telling people that?
No, none.
They should tell your neighbor the vineyard of the house of the Lord is the house of Israel.
Mm.
That's some knowledge that needs to be spread. That's why the title of the lesson is The Feast of Tabernacles, the gathering of the nation of Israel. Israel is very important to God.
That's right.
We're talking physical and spiritual, because Israel is the nation that God sent his law, statutes, and commandments through. And he's also the nation that we know from Paul telling the Romans that everybody got to get grafted into, right?
That's right.
So it seemed like in the Christian community, the nation of Israel should be the talk of the town. What do we got to do to get with the true nation of Israel so that we can get with the commandments of God? But the Bible says the vineyard of the Lord of hosts is the house of Israel. Keep going.
And the men of Judah, his pleasant plant.
Remember what it said in Leviticus, that we are supposed to keep the feast of ingathering after we have gathered in our labors, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, when it comes to the field of God, what is he talking about? He's talking about it to children of Israel. That's what he said, right?
Mm-hmm.
Those would be his labors. That's what he said, right?
That's right.
The vineyard, his vineyard, is the house of Israel. And the men of Judah, his pleasant plant. Keep going.
And he looked for judgment, but behold, oppression. For righteousness, but behold, a cry.
So those were the wild grapes. He was looking for good grapes, which is judgment. He was looking for the children of Israel to execute righteous judgment amongst each other, therefore showing the world how to do that.
Right.
But when he looked for that, he saw oppression, which would be wild grapes. That's not the fruit that's supposed to come from dealing with the word. Right? He looked for righteousness, but he got a cry. Are we finished with that?
Yes.
Okay, so now let's go to Exodus 19. So it said the vineyard of the Lord is the house of Israel. So when the Lord gathers in his harvest, who is he gathering? Right? Our field, we could have a cornfield or a field of grapes and things like that. When we gather in our harvest, we gather it in what's ours, right?
That's right.
Well, the Bible says the Lord's vineyard is the house of Israel. So when he gathers in his harvest, he's going to be gathering in his people. And that is what the Feast of Tabernacles represents. God has been talking about gathering his people all through the Bible. And it's amazing because most Christians don't even know that God's people need to be gathered in the first place. Exodus 19 and verse 3. Okay, brother, when you get there, go ahead.
And Moses went up unto God, and the Lord called unto him out of the mountain, saying, Thus shalt thou say to the house of Jacob, and tell the children of Israel.
God sending a message to Israel specifically, right? This ultimately a message that goes out to the world, but it goes out to the world by way of the children of Israel, because God commissioned the children of Israel to do this very thing that he's about to read. Verse 4.
You have seen what I did unto the Egyptians, and how I bare you on eagle's wings, how I brought you unto myself. Now therefore, if you will obey my voice indeed, and keep my covenant,
Uh-huh.
then you shall be a peculiar treasure unto me above all people, for all the earth is mine.
So God right here singled the children of Israel out. Period. End of story. There is no going back for the nation of Israel. There is no being regular. None at all. Because if we keep reading in this book, we see right here, he said, if you obey my voice indeed, then you'll be a peculiar treasure unto me above all people.
Right.
Right? That means I'm going to put you on top. If we keep reading, when we keep reading, we're going to see the flip side to that is, if you don't do what I say, I'm going to put you below all people. Where is the normalcy in that? Where is the middle ground or the mediocre in that? There is no more normalcy for the children of Israel. Either the children of Israel's condition is that they are above everybody or they are below everybody.
That's right.
Period. The Lord didn't have nowhere in the contract. This is a contract he's making with them, right?
Right.
Nowhere in the contract do he say, or you could just be like everybody else. Nowhere. He said, I'll make you a peculiar treasure unto me above all people. Keep going.
And you shall be unto me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation.
So that is the job and the goal of the children of Israel. They were chosen to be a kingdom of priests. And what does a priest do? A priest teaches people how to serve God properly. That's what a priest is supposed to do. Right? So if the whole nation of Israel are priests, that's what he said, right? You're going to be a kingdom of priests. If the whole nation are priests, who are they being priests to? Each other?
No.
We got brothers out here trying to say that this is only for Israel. Why? If the whole nation is priests, who are the people that are being preached to? Or that are being ministered to by the priest? Got to be everybody else. Right? Are we finished with that?
No.
Keep going.
These are the words which thou shalt speak unto the children of Israel.
Okay, so now Deuteronomy 28. Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 15. Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 15. Because again, the title of the lesson is the Feast of Tabernacles, the gathering of the nation of Israel. So to understand why we're here today and why we even need to understand a gathering of the nation of Israel, we got to understand who the nation of Israel is and why they need to be gathered. The nation of Israel can be found by their condition. We already saw the Lord chose them to either be above all people, right? If they do what he say. So now we're going to see the flip side of that. Deuteronomy 28 and verse 15. Okay, brother, go ahead.
But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God.
So this is the flip side. If you do what I say, I'm going to put you above all people. But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God. Keep going.
To observe to do all his commandments and his statutes, which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee.
So there's a flip side. If you don't do what I say, you're going to be cursed. They're going to come upon you. They're not going to be your friend. Ain't nothing going to survive. It said they're going to overtake you. Let's let that marinate for a second. So either the children of Israel are on top of the world or they somewhere struggling with some curses. That's about right? Okay, let's see how long them curses are supposed to last. Because it's not a mystery if we ask, did the children of Israel obey God the way they were supposed to? Pretty much everybody knows that answer would be a no, right? We can prove that in the Bible. We're not going to read that today, but go to Daniel chapter 9. Daniel said it out his mouth. The curse is poured upon us because we didn't do what God said. But everybody know that, right?
Well,
the children of Israel did not do what God said. So we know the children of Israel are cursed according to what we read, right? This ain't something we making up. We didn't throw cursed in there. It's in the 15th verse of the chapter, Deuteronomy 28. that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee. It's amazing how, you try to tell somebody, oh, the children of Israel were cursed. Oh, God wouldn't. They not cursed. We not cursed. God wouldn't do that. Well, if that's what it says in the Bible, them very words. So at least we can admit that at some point he cursed somebody somewhere, right?
Yeah, he did.
Somebody got cursed somewhere, saying he wouldn't do this, right? So how long is that curse on the children of Israel? Because we know this is what they were rewarded with for their disobedience to God. Skip to verse 45 and go ahead.
Moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee, and shall pursue thee, and overtake thee, till thou be destroyed.
So the children of Israel are going to be destroyed and overtaken by curses, right? It didn't say the curses are going to come on you, but all your tribes are going to stay intact and be in specific nations that you can identify. It didn't say that, did it?
No.
It didn't say the curses are going to overtake you, but all of Zebulun can be found here still. It didn't say that. It didn't say the curses are going to come on you, but you're still going to be able to find your language. Didn't even say that. It said the curses will be on you and pursue thee and overtake thee till thou be destroyed. What does destroyed mean? That means you can't find nothing. Isn't that what that means? We got brothers running around here like they can find a couple, 2, 3 things. Can find the whole pure language. Can find all these tribes. We destroyed. That means all that is destroyed.
Yep.
Keep going.
Because thou hearkenest not unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to keep his commandments and his statutes which he commanded thee.
And how long is that going to last? Verse 46.
And they shall be upon thee for a sign and for a wonder, and upon thy seed forever.
That's a very long time, right?
Yeah.
That's not over no time soon, right? So don't sound like this is in the past, do it. It sounds like this is going on right now. Let's take a look at what the children of Israel are on the bottom struggling with. Because again, the title of the lesson is the Feast of Tabernacles, the gathering of the nation of Israel. We talking about this feast represents the bringing back and the resurgence of this nation, which is currently can be found somewhere in the corner struggling with these very curses we about to read. The Feast of Tabernacles represents the reversal of these curses. That's what this day represents. This day represents, we've been talking about we in this condition for all this time. We ain't going to be talking about that no more. It's going to be over. That's what this feast day represents. The day that we could finally stop saying, we ain't got enough resources to do that. We could stop saying that when this comes into the full. That's what this day represents. But let's look at what the children of Israel are currently going through, because it said forever, right?
Right.
Skip to verse 37 and go ahead. Verse 41.
Thou shalt beget sons and daughters, but thou shalt not enjoy them, for they shall go into captivity.
So whoever the children of Israel are, all their sons and daughters are captives. They in jail, in prison. Now, just off that verse alone, we should already know who the children of Israel are, right? Just do the numbers. Everybody knows who's filling up the jailhouses, right? Skip to verse 37 and go ahead.
And thou shalt become an astonishment, a proverb, and a byword among all nations, whether the Lord shall lead thee.
So the words that people use to describe you are going to be proverbs and bywords, right? It ain't going to be the proper way to address. Like, you address French people by saying they French.
Right.
You address Italian people by saying they Italian.
Right.
That's the proper way to address them. Whoever the children of Israel are, they are cursed somewhere in the corner trying to figure it out. And they being called all types of stuff. Not being addressed by their proper name. Right? There is a common name for the children of Israel. We ain't going to say it today because today is a holy day. But everybody know what that word is. Skip to verse 43 and go ahead.
The stranger that is within thee shall get up above thee very high, and thou shalt come down very low.
So whoever's in the neighborhood of the children of Israel, because all nationalities got neighborhoods, right? Right? I'm new to Canada, but we drove to some places, and we go to some places, and it seemed like everybody there got a turban on.
Yeah.
That's their neighborhood, right? That's their neighborhood, right? You go to some places, you drive through a street, all of a sudden, all the billboards turn to a different language. You can't read nothing. All of them. Everything. Little signs, big signs, everything look like a different language. Be like some Asian language, right? A Chinese or Korean or something like that. That's their neighborhood, right? Mm-hmm. Then it all turned another language, look like Spanish. That's their neighborhood, right? But notice, you go in those neighborhoods, them people own the stores and the gas stations. They own the restaurants, right? It's not like you go in those neighborhoods and everybody that owns something in those neighborhoods is of another nation, and those people are just patrons and people that buy stuff. It's not like that. But in the children of Israel's neighborhood, they don't own nothing, right? It said the stranger that is within you is going to get up very high. So the stranger is going to run it in your neighborhood, basically. Mm-hmm. Do we know anybody whose neighborhoods look like that? Usually there's a Martin Luther King Boulevard involved. Right? I'm from the Israel Church of Jesus camp in Los Angeles. And, I've been fortunate enough to not be in the hood a lot. I didn't really grow up in the hood. But one thing that struck me, a block away is a convenience store from our church in LA. You go in the convenience store, obviously it's owned by some Asian people. But the thing that struck me is there is a wall of bulletproof glass. A straight wall from the counter to the ceiling of bulletproof glass this thick. You got to pay them by sliding some money under, and they tell you to go get what you're going to get. They got to take it and hit the scanner. You ain't touching them, they ain't touching you. Why? Because they feel like you an animal and anything can happen.
Wow.
Now, what other neighborhood is that happening in? You go in the grocery store, it's like a bank up in there? Really? But this is prophesied in the Bible. Right. The Lord said, the stranger that is within thee shall get up above thee very high, and thou shalt come down very low. Verse 44.
He shall lend to thee, and thou shalt not lend to him. He shall be the head, and thou shalt be the tail.
What other nation are we as a nation lending to? No. Anybody? No. Do we got anything set up? We just to some people, well, we got a couple banks too. Yeah, we got some banks. I'll give you that. What nation we lending money to? What nation are we lending money to, right? I mean, China is a nation, right?
Right.
They lending money to other nations, right? Other nations, whole nations got problems. They don't pay them. Who we got on the hook like that? Anybody? Nobody. You see, that's what I'm saying. Other people are used to this. We're not even used to it because we somewhere struggling with these very curses. This don't even make sense to us. You mean to tell me a whole nother nation owe that nation? Yeah, that's how that works. With people that ain't cursed. We not lending to nobody. He shall lend to thee, thou shalt not lend to him. He shall be the head, and thou shalt be not in the middle, not the stomach, not the back, not the shoulders, the tail. Told you the Lord singled out the children of Israel, right? It sounds pretty obvious who the children of Israel are, right?
That's right.
This don't sound like the people in Israel calling themselves the real Jews, do it?
No.
Are they lending to anybody? This verse right here kills that whole theory. They lending to everybody. This can't be them, right?
No.
Skip to verse 54. Go ahead.
So that the man that is tender among you and very delicate, his eye shall be evil towards his brother and towards the wife of his bosom, towards the remnants of his children, which he shall leave.
So whoever the children of Israel are, they got an epidemic of fathers leaving. Period. Talking about, I ain't seen my dad. I don't know my dad. Do you know my dad? Because I don't know him. He ain't there. They got an epidemic of this. And again, we know it's definitely other nations dealing with a lot of these different things. But it's one nation dealing with them all at all. And that would be the children of Israel. You got to fit the whole curse completely to be the children of Israel. Meaning your nation got to be suffering of these things. There's one nation that's suffering this, right? Skip to verse 28. Go ahead.
The Lord shall smite thee with madness and blindness and astonishment of heart. And thou shalt grope at noonday as the blind gropeth in darkness.
So in the middle of the day, whoever the children of Israel are, they just walking around trying to figure it out still. As a nation, as a whole. People driving by see them on the corner. Like, what's wrong with them? What are they doing? Hanging out on the corner. That's prophesied in the Bible. Thou shalt grope at noonday as the blind gropeth in darkness. Keep going.
And thou shalt not prosper in thy ways.
You out there, you tried to get a job. Got the haircut. Got that to work, right? Got the shirt and the pants and the shoes. Got all that to work. Even got the ride over to the job interview. Got up in the interview. They might even told you you were qualified for it. And you still didn't get the job. And it happened so much, you ain't even really fazed by it. Oh, I didn't get the job? Okay, well.
It's sad. It's true.
Hey, it's only, the reaction too, because we've been going through this so much, even the reaction is an anomaly. Other nations don't even understand none of that. Don't get none of that, because they ain't been through it like this. But it's prophesied in the Bible. Said, you going to grope in the noonday as the blind grope in darkness. Thou shalt not prosper in thy ways. Keep going.
And thou shalt be only oppressed and spoiled evermore.
Only oppressed and spoiled evermore. Keep going.
And no man shall save thee.
Nobody going to come in and say, you know what, let's right this wrong. Right? Since I've been in Canada, I've been hearing so much about the natives. And, it's a good thing that they, praise the Lord, that they getting the acknowledgement that they deserve for the wrongs that have been done to them. But every time I see that, I see black people saying, man, that's great. Now, what about us? It ain't going to happen. It ain't going to happen because the Lord won't allow it to happen. He said, no man shall save thee, right? We cross God. God ain't going to let nobody give us nothing out of this. He doing this to us. Skip to verse 25.
The Lord shall cause thee to be smitten before thy enemies. Thou shalt go out one way against them, and flee 7 ways before them, and shall be removed into all the kingdoms of the earth.
So not only we not going to have no power, we're going to be removed into all the kingdoms of the earth. He going to break us up as a nation. You can't have no power as a nation if you ain't together.
No.
But we say that all the time, right? What we need is unity. Right? How you going to have some unity if everybody all over the place?
Hard.
That'd be pretty hard, right?
Yeah.
You can't have you got to be in the same place to be able to talk face to face about some unity. We make songs about it and speeches about it, but the reality of the situation is the Lord has made that physically impossible by removing us into all kingdoms of the earth. That's what this day represents. This day represents the day when that's over with. When we come together and we are placed in our own land, we can finally have a conversation with each other that all our enemies ain't watching. You can't have no power like this. This is why it hasn't happened in all these years. Because it's not even possible. The groundwork for it to happen ain't even laid. That's what the Feast of Tabernacles represents. That's why it's called, the title of the lesson, the Feast of Tabernacles, the gathering of the nation of Israel. When the Lord gathers us and he comes and reigns over us, then all things will be set in order and we will be able to operate the way that we were meant to operate. But as of now, we're removed into all kingdoms. Skip to verse 64. Go ahead.
And the Lord shall scatter thee among all people.
That's what he just got through saying, right?
Mm-hmm.
We scattered among all people. We are all over the place. Few in number where we are.
Right.
What kind of power are we going to have?
None.
What kind of communication can we have towards each other? What kind of traditions can we uphold? What kind of normalcy can we have as a nation? How can we operate as a nation if we are sprinkled throughout everybody else's nation? All you can do in that situation is be a servant to them other people.
That's right.
The Lord has got the fix in on us. It ain't going to happen until we reconcile with him. That's why everywhere we are, we trying to figure out who we are. We trying to be them or trying to be something else. Or if you was to put us all in one room right now, it ain't no telling what you get. You'll get a sum of everything. Some of every language, some of every religion, some of every philosophy, everything. But this, you ain't gonna get this.
No.
As a whole. But again, the Lord said he was gonna curse us, right?
Right.
The Lord shall scatter thee among all people. Keep going.
From the one end of the earth even unto the other.
Uh-huh.
And there thou shalt serve other gods.
And that's what the Lord say. Look, you like it, I love it. You gonna serve other gods? You want to serve other gods? Go ahead. I'm gonna set the stage, and you gonna serve other gods. You gonna go to these other nations where they got the other gods. You're gonna be few in number, and you gonna be there.
Mm.
And I'm gonna turn my face, and I'm gonna see what happens. We're gonna see what happens, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there they shall serve other gods. Keep going.
Which neither thou nor thy fathers have known.
Okay.
Even wood and stone.
Skip down to verse 68 and go ahead.
And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships.
And how they get into the captivity. That's what Egypt represents. Because in other scripture, we got other lessons to show you. He already told them they're not going back to physical Egypt.
Mm.
But the condition that he took them out of was captivity. That's what he's saying.
Right.
You don't need a ship to go to Egypt from where they were anyway. But he's saying you're going to go into all these nations. That's what he was saying. I'm going to scatter you into all kingdoms. I'm going to scatter you into all nations, right?
Right.
The mode of transportation is going to be ships. And there's one people, even in our days, we all know how we got here, right? This was not by no migration. It's funny how they like to try to change history. Ain't none of our people get over here because they wanted to be here or was here before anything else. We got here on some slave ships. It's manifest to show that.
Right.
Just because we lost our paperwork don't mean the people that brought us here lost their paperwork.
That's right.
They know who they are. They know how long they've been here. They know who was here before them. That's why they trying to appease the natives, because they know that history. They got documents, and they got documents on who came here by name, and it's our people. So we could try to make ourselves feel better like we migrated here, but that's not how we got here. We got here on some ships stacked up like cargo. That is a fact. It's a fact. And that is also prophesied in the Bible. If the Bible is a fairy tale, somebody got to explain to me why it's always so spot on, especially concerning us. Mm-hmm. We got here by some ships, right?
That's right.
I'm from America. We got there by some ships. We got brothers in Puerto Rico. They got there by some ships. It's brothers in Europe. They got there by ships. Keep going.
By the way whereof I spake unto thee, thou shalt see it no more again.
Mm-hmm.
And there you shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen.
You're going to be on auction blocks like product being sold to your enemies.
Mm.
Whose history is that? Whose history is that? Nobody but ours, right?
Mm-hmm.
Keep going.
And no man shall buy you.
And if you're thinking the Lord is going to allow some man to give us any type of reparations, have we even gotten an apology? Has anybody even officially said, it was wrong what we did to them? We sorry. Has anybody said that? Anybody heard that?
Not
I've
me.
heard that.
Not me.
Other nations have gotten that apology, right? I'm even hearing they even trying to turn Thanksgiving into like something to honor the natives. They call it First Nations Day now. It ain't even the same in some places. In some places, they have changed that whole thing and done away with, this is about Christopher Columbus. Now it's about, giving honor to those who we did wrong. Look it up. Which is great. It's good to repent and give somebody the respect they deserve. But see if that's going to happen for us in our lifetime. What does that show? That show that people even know how to do right still don't make no sense why it can't be pointed in our direction. That's what that shows. And again, the Bible, why is the Bible right about that? He said, and no man shall buy you. Nobody's going to come back and take you back. Nobody's going to come and restore anything. Now, let's go to Deuteronomy 32, and we're going to start wrapping it up. Deuteronomy chapter 32 and verse 26. Deuteronomy 32 and verse 26. Okay, brother, go ahead.
I said, I will scatter them into corners. I would make the remembrance of them to cease from among men.
So they're going to be all over the place, and people not even going to remember who they were as a nation. To the point we don't even know. Nobody talks about it. If we were a nation that was together on this earth, and everybody knew who we were. Mm-hmm. When Jesus was walking the earth, people knew, they saw him, meaning they knew what color he was. They knew what he looked like. They knew who he was. They knew who his nation was.
That's right.
It wasn't like we were a nation in Jerusalem and nobody knew what we looked like, how we acted, who we were. But now that's how it is, right? Nobody knows what it is. It could be a dice toss. People even saying it don't matter who Israel is. What kind of statement is that? You ever heard anybody say it don't matter what nationality Michelangelo was? Anybody ever say anything like that? Anybody? No? You'll never hear nobody making no kind of crazy statements like that about any other nation, but the one that the Lord said, I'm going to make sure the remembrance of you is forgotten. Mm-hmm. We finished with that? Mm-hmm. Okay, Luke chapter 13. Again, we're going to start wrapping it up. We just making the point of who the children of Israel are, because God made a promise to the children of Israel. And this feast is about bringing a portion of that promise to pass. Luke chapter 13 and verse 34. Okay, brother, when you get there, go ahead.
Oh, Jerusalem, Jerusalem, which killeth the prophets.
See, this is the problem. When we had Jerusalem, we was killing God's prophets. How do we think that are we going to be able to do something like that against God and it's going to go unpunished? We better be glad he's letting us be a nation at all. To be killing his prophets. He said, oh, Jerusalem, Jerusalem, which killeth the prophets. Keep going.
And stonest them that are sent unto thee.
This means God was sending his word and message through people, and the people that them people were coming to got hit with rocks to the point that they died. That's crazy. Keep going.
How often would I have gathered thy children together, as a hen doeth gather her brood under her wings, and ye would not.
Well, look at what Jesus is talking about, though, right? He ain't talking about rapturing nobody. He's talking about gathering the children of Jerusalem. He's saying, basically, like we like to say, he would have been did this. Do y'all know that expression? Meaning he really wanted, he would have did this a while ago. But we so hard-headed, we won't get with the program.
No.
But look at where Jesus is coming from. He's talking about doing what? Gathering the children of Israel, right?
Right.
That's why the title of the lesson is the Feast of Tabernacles, the gathering of the nation of Israel. Now, let's go to Deuteronomy 30. Deuteronomy chapter 30 and verse 1. Deuteronomy chapter 30 and verse 1. Okay, brother, when you get there, go ahead.
And it shall come to pass, when all these things are come upon thee, the blessing and the curse which I have set before thee, and thou shalt call them to mind among all the nations, whether the Lord thy God has driven thee.
Notice how spot on the Bible is, right? That's what's going on now. People say, oh man, being an Israelite is so popular. Everybody's starting to understand, that we Israel. That's what the Bible said, right?
Mm-hmm.
Prophesied this. Mm-hmm. It shall come to pass, the blessings and the curses which I have set before thee, and thou shalt call them to mind among the nations. That's what we're doing. We in Canada calling it to mind.
Right.
We in Canada understand that, look, we in this situation because God has cursed us.
Mm-hmm.
Verse 2.
And shall return unto the Lord thy God, and shall obey his voice according to all that I command thee this day, thou and thy children, with all thy heart and with all thy soul, then the Lord thy God will turn thy captivity and have compassion upon thee, and will return and gather thee from all the nations, whether the Lord thy God has scattered thee.
Whoever told their congregation that Jesus coming back? One big piece of knowing when Jesus comes back is that all his people, the children of Israel, are going to turn back to him and start keeping his law, statutes, and commandments. Right. That's what we read, right?
Right.
Said when you turn to him and obey his voice with all your heart and soul and your household, that the Lord is going to turn our captivity and have compassion and will return.
Right.
And do what when he come back? Gather thee from all nations.
Right.
That's why the title of the lesson is the Feast of Tabernacles, the gathering of the nation of Israel. Keep going.
If any of thy be driven out unto the outmost parts of heaven, from thence will the Lord thy God gather thee, and from thence will he fetch thee. And the Lord thy God will bring thee into the land which thy fathers possessed, and thou shalt possess it.
So we talking about bringing us into our land. We got a land. Anybody telling black people out here suffering that they actually have a land? How come Jesse Jackson ain't telling nobody they got land? Or Al Sharpton? Or even some of the new people, Umar Johnson. How come they ain't saying, well, this is our original land? This is the problem. We don't got no land. We scattered everywhere. How can we come together? Why not let the people know that, right? That's what the Bible's letting us know. The Bible's letting us know that we have a land, and ultimately God is going to bring us back to our land, and then we will have some unity.
Right.
We got some place to be unified at. That's why the title of the lesson is the Feast of Tabernacles, the gathering of the nation of Israel. Keep going.
And he will do thee good and multiply thee above thy fathers. And the Lord thy God will circumcise thy heart and the heart of thy seed, to love the Lord thy God with all thy heart and with all thy soul, that thou mayest live.
Okay, Isaiah 66. Isaiah 66, we're going to start winding it down. Isaiah 66 and verse 18. Isaiah 66 and 18. Okay, brother, when you get there, go ahead and read.
For I know their works and their thoughts. It shall come that I will gather all nations and tongues, and they shall come and see my glory. And I will set a sign among them, and I will send those that escape of them into the nations. To Tarshish, Pul, Lud, that draw the bow, to Tubal and Tavan, to the islands afar off, that have not heard my fame, neither have seen my glory. And they shall declare my glory among the Gentiles. And they shall bring all your brethren for an offering unto the Lord out of all nations.
So this is how the Lord is going to actually physically gather the nation of Israel. He's going to have the other nations where we scatter understand and know who we are and know who our God is, and they are going to literally bring us back to Jerusalem. Keep going.
Upon horses and in chariots and in litters and upon mules and upon swift beasts to my holy mountain Jerusalem, saith the Lord, as the children of Israel bringing an offering in a clean vessel into the house of the Lord.
I think is that it?
Yep.
Okay, Ezekiel 39. Ezekiel 39. Ezekiel 39 and verse 23. Ezekiel 39 and 23. Okay, brother, when you get there, go ahead.
And the heathen shall know that the house of Israel went into captivity for their iniquity, because they transgressed against me.
Okay, so everybody's going to know what we know now, that we went into captivity because of our sin against God. Keep going.
Therefore hide I my face from them, and gave them into the hands of their enemies. So fell they all by the sword. According to their uncleanness and according to their transgressions have I done unto them, and hid my face from them. Therefore thus saith the Lord God, now will I bring again the captivities of Jacob, and have mercy upon the whole house of Israel, and will be jealous for my holy name. After that they have borne their shame and all their trespasses whereby they have trespassed against me, when they dwelt safely in their land, and none made them afraid. When I have brought them again from the people, and gathered them out of their enemies' lands, and am satisfied in them in the sight of many nations, then shall they know that I am the Lord their God, which caused them to be led into captivity among the heathens. But I will gather them unto their own land, and have left none of them any more there. Okay, so no Israelites are going to be left scattered after this. Everybody will be gathered. And this is after the Battle of Armageddon, so some people who still don't want to learn are going to perish in Armageddon. And then you have the Lord gathering Israel into the wilderness, and he says some people will perish there. But once we get into Israel, we will all be in our land. Period. End of story. No more scattered. No more scattered and no more cursed. That's what this day represents. We are here feasting to represent our nation as a whole. No more scattered and no more cursed. That's amazing. Keep going. Neither will I hide my face any more from them.
The Lord's not going to hide his face from us anymore. Keep going.
For I have poured out my spirit upon the house of Israel, saith the Lord God.
Okay, Jeremiah 23. Jeremiah chapter 23. And 3 more after this. Jeremiah chapter 23 and verse 7. Jeremiah chapter 23 and verse 7. Okay, brother, when you get there, go ahead.
Therefore, behold, the days come, saith the Lord, that they shall no more say, the Lord liveth, which brought up the children of Israel out of the land of Egypt. But the Lord liveth, which brought up and which led the seed of the house of Israel out of the north country, and from all countries whither I have driven them, and they shall dwell in their own land.
Okay. We're going to skip Ezekiel 47 and go right to Ezekiel 48. Was that it for that?
Yeah.
Okay, Ezekiel 48. Ezekiel 48. And verse 1. Ezekiel 48 and verse 1. Okay, brother, when you get there, go ahead.
Now these are the names of the tribes, from the north end to the coast of the way of Hethlon, as one goes to Hamath, Havarnian, the borders of Damascus northward, to the coast of Hamath. For these are the isles east and west, a portion for Dan.
Okay, so what we are looking at is God literally dividing our land between our tribes. This means when we finally liberated from this captivity, God got it so on point to where he's telling us now what part of our land we're going to inherit. These are the borders and the division of our land, Israel, which will be inherited by our people at this time. That's an amazing thing.
Yeah, it is.
Verse 2.
And by the border of Dan, from the east side unto the west side, a portion for Asher.
Uh-huh.
And by the borders of Asher, from the east side even unto the west side, a portion for Naphtali.
Uh-huh.
And by the borders of Naphtali, from the east side unto the west side, a portion for Manasseh.
Uh-huh.
And by the borders of Manasseh, from the east side unto the west side, a portion for Ephraim.
Uh-huh.
And by the borders of Ephraim, from the east side even unto the west side, a portion for Reuben.
Uh-huh.
And by the borders of Reuben, from the east side unto the west side, a portion for Judah.
Uh-huh.
And by the borders of Judah, from the east side unto the west side, shall be the offering which ye shall offer of 25,000 reeds in breadth and in length as one of the other parts, from the east side unto the west side, and the sanctuary shall be in the midst of it.
So what's in the midst of it? The sanctuary. This is where God's going to be. But again, the Lord is showing us we just need to hold on and make this thing and get on the right side of it, and we can see our nation operate in a state that's not a state of confusion. That's what this feast represents. All of this that we are under as a nation being over with. That's why the title of the lesson is The Feast of Tabernacles, the gathering of the nation of Israel. One more place, Zechariah 8. Zechariah chapter 8. Zechariah chapter 8 and verse 12. Zechariah chapter 8 and verse 12. Okay, brother, when you get there, go ahead.
For the seed shall be prosperous, the vine shall give her fruit, and the ground shall give her increase, and the heavens shall give their dew, and I will cause the remnants of this people to possess all these things.
Notice what he said. Those that make it and come in and are able to get in this gathering, because he's going to gather all Israel, but again, we saw everybody ain't going to survive it. But those who make it, he said, I will cause the remnant of this people to possess all these things. Verse 13.
And it shall come to pass that as you were a curse among the heathens, O house of Judah and house of Israel, so will I save you, and you shall be a blessing. Fear not, but let your hands be strong.
And that was the Feast of Tabernacles, the gathering of the nation of Israel. And I hope someone got some understanding in the mighty name of Jesus.